Has anyone ever told you that you're the most beautiful woman in this entire city? The words rolled off Michael Hanson's tongue with practiced ease. Smooth, confident, dripping with the kind of charm that had opened bedroom doors from Manhattan to Monaco. She didn't even blink. Michael stood at the front desk of the Hazen Hotel, his Armani suit wrinkled from hours trapped in traffic, his patience completely spent. And a woman had just walked past him like he was invisible. Her uniform was simple, black slacks, white blouse, a name tag he couldn't quite read from where he stood. But the way she moved made simple look like art. Curves that the modest fabric couldn't hide. Hips that swayed with an effortless rhythm. Full lips pressed into a neutral line. Hair pulled back in a ponytail that swung gently as she dropped a room service slip on the counter and turned to leave. Their eyes met for exactly 1 second. He smiled. The smile that closed billion-dollar deals. The smile that made women forget their own names. She looked away and kept walking. No blush, no hesitation, no second glance. Just gone. Michael Hanson had built a $200 million empire before the age of 35. Just 12 hours ago, he'd signed the final paperwork on a $47 million brokerage launch. The biggest deal of his career. Champagne had flowed in the conference room. His name would be in tomorrow's financial headlines. He should be celebrating at his penthouse in the Ridges right now, surrounded by people who hung on his every word. Instead, he was stranded in a mid-tier hotel off Fremont Street because a 12-car pileup on I-15 had turned a 40-minute drive into a 2.5-hour nightmare. His driver had suggested pulling off at the nearest exit. Michael, exhausted and irritable, had agreed without argument. Now he stood at the front desk, watching an empty hallway where a waitress had just vanished. And he couldn't remember the last time someone had looked through him like he didn't exist. The clerk behind the counter cleared her throat. "Sir, your name for the reservation?" Michael blinked, pulling himself back to the present. Hanson. Michael Hanson. The clerk typed quickly, her fingers clicking against the keyboard. "Yes, Mr. Hanson. We have a suite available on the 4th floor. Will that be acceptable?" He nodded absently, barely hearing her. His mind was still on the woman in the ponytail, the one who hadn't cared about his smile or his suit or the weight of his name. The clerk slid a keycard across the counter. "Room 412. Elevators are to your left. Is there anything else I can help you with tonight?" Michael picked up the keycard, turning it over in his fingers. Then he glanced toward the hallway one more time. "The woman who was just here," he said. "The one who dropped off the room service slip. What's her name?" The clerk hesitated. I'm not sure I should." "Her name." His voice was quiet, but it carried the kind of authority that didn't leave room for negotiation. The clerk swallowed. Megan Allen. She works room service on the evening shift." Michael tucked the key card into his jacket pocket. "Thank you." He walked toward the elevators without another word, his footsteps echoing across the marble floor. The doors slid open. He stepped inside and pressed the button for the 4th floor. As the elevator climbed, he loosened his tie and stared at his reflection in the polished metal doors. Megan Allen. He had a name now. That was a start. The suite was unremarkable. Michael stood by the window, staring out at the glow of neon signs and the distant shimmer of the Strip. His jacket hung over the back of a chair. His shoes sat discarded by the door. The minibar was stocked with mid-shelf liquor that he hadn't touched. He should be sleeping. Tomorrow's schedule was packed. Calls with investors, a lunch meeting with a state senator who wanted to discuss campaign contributions, a board review in the afternoon. His body was exhausted from the long day, but his mind refused to quiet down. It kept circling back to her. The way she'd looked at him. Or rather, the way she hadn't. The complete absence of interest in her eyes. The ease with which she dismissed him and walked away. He picked up the phone beside the bed and dialed room service. "Good evening, Mr. Hanson. How may I assist you?" "Whiskey, neat, and a steak. Medium rare." "Of course, sir. Your order will arrive in approximately 30 minutes. He hung up and sat on the edge of the bed, loosening his collar another button. He wasn't hungry. The whiskey in the minibar would have been fine. But room service meant a knock on his door. And if she was still working tonight, there was a chance, however small, that she'd be the one holding the tray. 29 minutes later, a knock came. Michael crossed the room and pulled the door open. It was her. Megan stood in the hallway, a silver tray balanced expertly in her hands. Up close, she was even more striking than he'd realized. Dark eyes that held steady without wavering. Smooth skin that caught the dim hallway light. A small beauty mark just below her left ear that he hadn't noticed before. The faint scent of vanilla drifted toward him, probably lotion, nothing expensive. But it suited her. And the uniform that had seemed modest from a distance did little to hide what was underneath up close. The fabric pulled slightly across her chest. The curve of her waist, the fullness of her hips. Michael's eyes traced her body slowly, deliberately, making no effort to hide what he was looking at. "Your orders, sir." Her voice was calm, professional, utterly detached. "Where would you like it?" Michael stepped aside and gestured toward the small table near the window. She entered without hesitation, her movements precise and efficient. She set the tray down, arranged the plate, positioned the glass beside the whiskey bottle. Not once did her eyes linger on him. He watched her the entire time, watched the way she bent slightly to arrange the silverware, watched the way her blouse shifted as she moved. "I saw you earlier," he said as she turned to leave. "In the lobby." She paused, her back still toward him. "Is there something wrong with your order, Mr. Hanson?" So she knew his name. The clerk must have told her. Good. Nothing's wrong. He moved a step closer. "I just wanted to introduce myself properly. I'm Michael." "I know who you are." She turned slightly, just enough to meet his eyes. Her expression remained blank. "Will there be anything else?" Most women softened at this point. A smile, a flutter of lashes, some small acknowledgement that they understood the opportunity standing in front of them. She gave him nothing. "What's your name?" he asked, though he already knew. A beat of silence. "Megan." "Megan." He let the name hang in the air between them, tasting it. "You're stunning, you know that? I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since I saw you downstairs." He stepped closer. Close enough to catch the vanilla scent again. Close enough to see the faint pulse at the base of her throat. "I want you," he said. No games, no pretense. Just raw honesty wrapped in velvet. "Tonight, right here, just you and me." Her expression didn't change. Not a flicker of surprise, not a hint of flattery. "No." The word came out flat. Final. Michael tilted his head, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You didn't even let me finish." "You don't need to finish. The answer is no." He reached into his jacket and pulled out his checkbook. Clicked his pen, wrote a number with slow, deliberate strokes. $15,000. He tore the check free and held it out toward her. "One night," he said. "No strings, no complications. $15,000, and tomorrow morning we both go our separate ways. You'll never have to see me again, if that's what you want." Megan looked at the check in his hand. Then she looked at him. The silence stretched between them. Finally, she reached out and took the check from his fingers. For a brief moment, something like triumph flickered in Michael's chest. The thrill of a deal closed, a conquest secured. Then she folded the check in half with one crisp motion and placed it gently on the table beside his untouched whiskey. "My body isn't something you can purchase, Mr. Hanson." Her voice was steady, calm, without anger or offense, just cold, hard fact. "I'm offering you more money than you probably make in 6 months," he replied, his jaw tightening. "And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter." She met his gaze without flinching. "You could offer me $1 million, and my answer would still be the same. I'm not for sale. Not tonight, not ever." She turned and walked toward the door. Something hot surged through Michael's veins. Rejection. He hadn't tasted it in years. "No one walks out on me." The words came out cold, controlled, a warning dressed in silk. Megan stopped, her hand resting on the door handle. She didn't turn around. "I just did." The door clicked shut behind her. Michael stood alone in the silence. The check sat folded on the table. The whiskey remained untouched. His jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists. She had no idea who she'd just walked away from. But she would. What do you think Michael is going to do next? Is he the type to accept rejection and move on? Or is he about to make Megan's life very difficult? Drop your predictions in the comments. I want to hear what you think. And if you're already hooked on this story, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The sign above the door read, "Sweet Grace Bakery," in faded pink letters. Dust coated the windows. A closed sign hung crooked behind the glass, yellowed from 2 years of sun. Megan stood on the sidewalk, keys in hand, staring at the door she hadn't opened since the day of her mother's funeral. Grace Allen had built this bakery from nothing. 23 years of early mornings and flour-dusted aprons. 23 years of cinnamon rolls cooling on wire racks and regulars who came every Sunday just to hear her laugh. The whole neighborhood knew her name. The whole neighborhood mourned when she passed. Cancer, the slow kind. The kind that gives you time to say goodbye, but steals pieces of the person you love long before they're gone. Megan had been by her side until the end. Held her hand when she took her last breath. Handled the funeral arrangements alone because there was no one else to do it. And then she'd locked the bakery door and walked away. For 2 years, she'd driven past this building on her way to work. Every time, she'd told herself she wasn't ready. The truth was simpler and harder. Stepping inside meant accepting that her mother was really gone. But something had shifted. Maybe it was the hotel. Maybe it was having her dignity tested by a man who thought everything had a price. Maybe she just needed to remember who she was before the world tried to break her. She slid the key into the lock, turned it, pushed open the door. The smell hit her first, stale air and old flour. Underneath it, faint but unmistakable, vanilla and cinnamon. Her mother's scent. Megan's throat tightened. Everything was exactly as Grace had left it. The flour containers lined up on the shelf, the aprons hanging on hooks by the oven, the framed photograph on the wall, Megan at 7 years old, covered head to toe in flour, grinning at the camera while her mother laughed beside her. She walked slowly through the space, her fingers trailing across dusty surfaces. The prep counter where she'd learned to knead dough. The display case where her mother had arranged pastries like works of art. the old radio sitting on the windowsill, coated in grime. Megan picked up the radio and wiped it clean with her sleeve. She turned the dial. Static crackled, then faded into music, an old song, scratchy and worn, her mother's favorite. Megan closed her eyes and let the melody wash over her. For a moment, just a moment, she could almost feel Grace standing beside her, could almost hear her voice saying what she'd said 1,000 times before. This kitchen has seen a lot of tears, baby, but it's seen more joy. Don't ever forget that. Megan opened her eyes. They were wet, but she didn't cry. She found a rag under the sink and started cleaning. Hours passed. The morning light shifted to afternoon gold. Megan discovered old paint cans in the storage closet, a soft, warm yellow her mother had bought years ago but never used. She pried open the lid, found a roller, and began painting the walls. The work was slow and meditative. Stroke by stroke, the dingy gray transformed into something brighter, something alive. She wasn't ready to reopen the bakery, wasn't sure she ever would be. But for the first time in 2 years, she was ready to be here. And that was enough. The summons came on a Tuesday. Megan was restocking the supply closet when her supervisor appeared in the doorway, her face pinched with discomfort. "Ms. Presley wants to see you. Her office, now." Megan frowned. Diane Presley was the hotel owner. In 3 years of working at the Hazen, Megan had never spoken to her directly. Waitresses didn't get called to the executive floor. Did she say why? Her supervisor wouldn't meet her eyes. Just go. The walk through the hotel's back corridors felt longer than usual. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Her shoes squeaked against the linoleum. By the time she reached the polished wooden door marked D. Presley, owner, her stomach had twisted into knots. She knocked. "Come in." Diane Presley sat behind a mahogany desk that probably cost more than Megan's car. She was a sharp-featured woman in her early 50s, dressed in a cream blazer with gold buttons. Her expression was professional, detached. "Sit down, Megan." Megan sat. Diane folded her hands on the desk. "I'll get straight to the point. Your employment at the Hazen Hotel is being terminated, effective immediately." The words didn't register at first. Megan blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "You're being let go." "I don't understand. I've never missed a shift. I've never had a complaint. My performance reviews have always been..." "This isn't about your performance." Megan's mouth went dry. "Then what is it about?" Diane sighed. For a brief moment, something almost like discomfort flickered across her face, almost like guilt. "You offended a guest, a very important guest." The air left Megan's lungs. She knew, instantly, completely, she knew. Michael Hanson. Diane didn't confirm it. She didn't have to. "Mr. Hanson is one of the primary investors who made this hotel possible," Diane continued, her voice measured. "His capital funded our renovation 3 years ago. His connections have brought us clientele we never could have attracted otherwise. Without him, the Hazen wouldn't exist." Megan's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. "So, because I wouldn't sleep with him, I'm fired?" Diane's expression tightened. "I'm not saying..." "That's exactly what you're saying." Megan's voice shook, but she didn't look away. "He offered me money, $15,000, for one night. I said no, and now I'm losing my job because of it." Silence stretched between them. Diane leaned back in her chair. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, less rehearsed. "There are people in this world you don't say no to, Megan. That's not fair. It's not right. But it's reality. My hands are tied. Megan stared at her. At this woman in her expensive blazer, sitting behind her expensive desk, telling her that dignity had a price she couldn't afford. She stood slowly. "I hope his money keeps you warm at night, Ms. Presley." She walked out without looking back. Down the corridor, past her supervisor, past the supply closet where she'd been restocking shelves 20 minutes ago, back when she still had a job. She made it all the way to the parking lot before her hands started shaking. She hadn't yelled, hadn't cursed, hadn't made a scene. She had simply said no, and it had cost her everything. Morning light poured through freshly cleaned windows. Megan stood on a stepladder, roller in hand, spreading soft yellow paint across the last unpainted wall. Her mother's favorite song played on the old radio. She'd kept it on repeat for 3 days now. The melody had become a comfort, a companion. For the first time since the hotel, she felt something close to peace. The doorbell chimed. "We're closed," she called without turning around. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Then a voice. "Megan?" Her blood turned to ice. She turned slowly, the roller still gripped in her hand. Michael Hanson stood in the doorway. Charcoal suit, silver watch. Eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "How did you find me?" He didn't answer. He stepped inside, his gaze sweeping across the half-painted walls, the dusty equipment, the photograph of Megan and her mother on the wall. "I wanted to talk." Megan stepped down from the ladder, putting it between them. "You got me fired." "I know. You destroyed my livelihood because I wouldn't let you buy me." "I know." His honesty caught her off guard. She'd expected denial, excuses, some justification wrapped in charm. He offered none. "Get out." Her voice hardened. "Now, or I'm calling the police." He held her gaze. Something flickered in his eyes. She couldn't tell what. Frustration, regret, hunger. Finally, he nodded. "I'll go." He turned toward the door, paused with his hand on the frame. "I'm not done, Megan. Not even close." The bell chimed as he left. The door swung shut behind him. Megan stood frozen, her heart slamming against her ribs. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't made threats. But somehow, his calm was more terrifying than anger would have been. The sun had set by the time Megan finished. She stepped back and admired the walls, bright, warm, alive. The bakery looked like a different place now, a place with a future instead of just a past. She cleaned the brushes, washed the paint from her hands, and changed into fresh clothes in the small restroom. Then she grabbed her bag, turned off the radio, and headed out the back door. The alley was dark. A single street lamp flickered at the far end, casting long shadows across the concrete. She was halfway to the street when a hand grabbed her arm. Instinct took over. She spun, drove her elbow backward, and swung her palm with every ounce of fear and fury she had. The slap cracked through the silence. The figure stumbled back. She got a clear look at his face. Michael. A red mark bloomed across his cheek. His eyes were wide with shock. "Are you insane?" She was shaking now, adrenaline and rage flooding her system. "You can't grab someone in a dark alley. I could have you arrested." He straightened slowly, one hand touching his cheek. "I deserve that." "You're damn right you did." "I'm not going to hurt you, Megan." "You already have." The words landed hard. She watched them hit him, watched something crack behind his eyes. Silence settled between them. Cold night air, distant traffic, her breath coming in short, sharp bursts. "What do you want from me?" she finally asked. I already told you, I'm not for sale. Michael lowered his hands. His voice dropped to something quieter, something almost vulnerable. I know. That's exactly why I can't stop thinking about you. Megan stared at him. The billionaire who'd tried to buy her, who'd gotten her fired, who'd tracked her down and grabbed her in a dark alley. He wasn't supposed to look at her like that. Wasn't supposed to sound like a man who'd lost something he didn't know how to find. She didn't respond. Didn't trust herself to. She turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone in the dark. He just told her he can't stop thinking about her. But is that love? Or obsession? What do you think is really driving Michael? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, hit that like button. It helps more people find stories like the one you're watching. Wait. His voice stopped her mid-step. Not commanding, not demanding. Something closer to desperate. Megan turned slowly. Michael was still standing where she'd left him. The red mark on his cheek visible even in the dim light. You want to know why? He leaned against the brick wall, his composure cracking. Why I offered you money. Why I got you fired. Why I'm standing in a dirty alley like some kind of stalker. I want to know why you can't take no for an answer. He laughed, a hollow, bitter sound that echoed off the walls. Because no one ever has. Not in business, not in life. He paused. Not since her. Megan frowned. Her? Silence stretched between them. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, rawer. 5 years ago, I was engaged. Her name was Camille. I loved her in a way I didn't know I was capable of. He stared at the ground. She was with me before the money, before the empire. At least, that's what I believed. Megan said nothing, just listened. I let her in. Showed her parts of myself I'd never shown anyone. I thought she was the one person in the world who saw me. Not my net worth, not my connections. Just me. His jaw tightened. Then I found out she'd been working with a competitor the entire time, feeding them information, deals, strategies. She almost destroyed everything I'd built. He looked up at Megan. But the money wasn't what hurt. She made me believe I was loved. And it was all a lie. The words hung in the cold air between them. After that, I made a decision. No one would ever have that kind of power over me again. I buried whatever was left of the man I used to be and became this. He gestured at himself. The suit, the watch, the armor. For 5 years it worked. I didn't feel anything. Didn't want anyone. Women were transactions. Business was control. I was numb. And I told myself that was strength. He stepped closer, not threatening, almost pleading. Then you looked at me like I was nothing, handed back my money like it was trash, walked out of that room like I didn't exist. His voice cracked. And something inside me broke open. I don't know what it is. I just know I can't walk away from it. Silence. Megan stood with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. It's a sad story, Michael. It really is. He watched her, waiting. But it doesn't excuse what you did. She stepped closer. You tried to buy me like property. When I said no, you punished me. Took my job. Showed up at my mother's bakery uninvited. Grabbed me in a dark alley. I know. Knowing isn't enough. Her eyes met his without flinching. I'm not your therapy. I'm not your redemption. I'm not going to fix what's broken inside you just because you've decided I'm special. The words hit him like a blow to the chest. She saw it land. I've spent 2 years grieving my mother. 2 years afraid to step inside her bakery because the pain was too much. I just started putting my life back together." Her voice hardened. "And you came in like a hurricane trying to tear it apart. What do you want me to do?" "I want you to leave me alone." He flinched. "And if you can't do that, if you really believe there's something here worth fighting for, then earn it." She let the word hang in the air. "Don't buy it. Don't demand it. Don't manipulate your way into my life. Earn it." She turned and walked away. Her footsteps faded into the night until there was nothing left but silence. Michael stood alone in the alley, her words echoing in his head. Earn it. 2 words. The hardest assignment he'd ever been given. He didn't know where to start. Didn't know if he was even capable of becoming the kind of man who deserved her. But for the first time in 5 years, he wanted to try. Life didn't stop because a billionaire had decided to obsess over her. Megan picked up shifts wherever she could find them. Mornings at a diner on Fremont Street. Afternoons filling in at a coffee shop near UNLV. The pay was inconsistent, but it kept her afloat. Between shifts, she returned to the bakery, scrubbing floors, fixing the broken display case, replacing the cracked tiles behind the counter. Progress was slow, but every small improvement felt like a victory. One Tuesday afternoon, she was wiping down tables at the diner when a man approached. "Excuse me, I just wanted to say the service here was great. You made a hectic lunch rush feel easy." Megan looked up. He was mid-30s, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt. Warm smile, easy demeanor, nothing flashy, nothing intimidating. "Thank you," she said. "I appreciate that. I'm Anthony." He extended his hand. "Anthony Torres." She shook it. "Megan, listen, I don't want to be weird about this, but would you want to grab coffee sometime? No pressure, just coffee." Megan hesitated. After everything with Michael, the last thing she needed was another man complicating her life. But Anthony wasn't looking at her like she was something to acquire. He was looking at her like she was a person. "Sure," she heard herself say. "Coffee sounds nice." 3 days later, she sat across from her best friend Marianne at a small cafe on Charleston Boulevard. "Wait, you met someone?" Marianne's eyes went wide. "Already? It's just coffee, nothing serious. But it's someone normal, right? No private jets, no bodyguards, no creepy I own this hotel energy?" Megan laughed. "He's a real estate developer. Divorced, seems kind." "Kind?" Marianne leaned back, grinning. "I'll take kind over complicated any day. When's the date?" "Tomorrow night." Anthony took her to a quiet cafe on South Maryland Parkway. They talked for 2 hours, about her dreams of reopening the bakery, about his work, about favorite movies and worst first dates. He was patient, attentive. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. She should have been happy, should have felt relieved. So why did her mind keep drifting to a different man entirely? The black Tesla sat parked in the shadows across the street. Inside, Michael stared through the tinted window at the cafe, where Megan and Anthony sat laughing over dessert. His jaw was tight. His hands gripped the leather seat. Miguel sat in the front, tablet in hand, visibly uncomfortable. "Sir, I have to advise against continuing this. If she finds out..." "She won't." Miguel hesitated, then read from the screen. "Anthony Torres, 34. Commercial real estate. Clean record. Recently divorced. No significant debts." "I didn't ask for his biography." "Then what exactly are we doing here, sir?" Michael didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the window, on Megan's smile as Anthony leaned in and touched her hand. A real smile, not the guarded one she'd given him. Something dark twisted in his chest, possessive, painful. He's ordinary, Michael muttered. Completely ordinary. Perhaps that's what she wants. Michael's jaw tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to storm into that cafe, to drag Anthony out by his collar, to remind Megan that she... He stopped himself. Earn it. Her voice echoed through his skull. He couldn't buy her, couldn't threaten her, couldn't control her. So what could he do? Take me home, Miguel. The car pulled away. Michael watched the cafe disappear in the side mirror. For the first time in his life, he didn't know how to win. A week passed. Megan went on 2 more dates with Anthony. Each one was pleasant, easy, uncomplicated. He brought her flowers. He opened doors. He texted good morning and good night like clockwork. She told herself this was what she wanted. Stability, normalcy, a man who didn't come with chaos attached. But at night, alone in her apartment, her thoughts betrayed her. She'd find herself replaying that moment in the alley. The crack in Michael's voice when he talked about Camille. The look in his eyes when she'd told him to earn it. She hated that she couldn't stop thinking about him. She hated even more that part of her didn't want to. The restaurant was nicer than anywhere Megan had been in years. Anthony had insisted. A proper date, he'd called it. White tablecloths, candlelight, a menu without prices. The kind of place where waiters refilled your water glass before you even noticed it was empty. They were halfway through dinner when Megan saw him. Michael walked through the entrance, Miguel 2 steps behind. Dark suit, silver watch. The kind of presence that made every head in the room turn. Megan's fork froze midway to her mouth. Their eyes met across the restaurant. He didn't look away. Megan? Anthony frowned. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. She set down her fork. Excuse me for a moment. She crossed the room before Michael could approach, intercepting him near the bar. What are you doing here? Having dinner. His voice was calm. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. You're following me. I'm not. I didn't know you'd be here. She didn't believe him, but his expression held no smugness, no games. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. I was going to have Miguel deliver this tomorrow, but since you're here... He held it out. She didn't take it. What is it? Open it. Reluctantly, she took the envelope, tore it open, unfolded the papers inside. Her breath stopped. It was a deed. The deed to her mother's bakery, the building, the property, everything. Transferred into her name, paid in full. No mortgage, no strings. She looked up at him, stunned. The landlord was planning to sell next month, Michael said quietly. I bought it first. Put it in your name. I didn't ask you to do this. I know. I told you not to buy your way into my life. I'm not. He held her gaze. There are no conditions. I don't want anything from you. I just couldn't let someone take your mother's legacy. Not after everything. Megan stared at the deed. Her hands were trembling. This doesn't change what you did. I know. It's not supposed to. He stepped back. It's not an apology. It's not a transaction. It's just something I needed to do. He turned and walked toward the back of the restaurant without another word. Megan stood frozen, the deed clutched against her chest. Anthony appeared beside her. Megan? What's going on? Who was that? She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Her mother's bakery was hers, truly hers. And the man who had tried to destroy her life had just saved the only thing she had left. He just gave her the one thing she thought she'd lost forever, her mother's legacy. But can a gift like that make up for everything he's done? Or is she setting herself up for more pain? I want to hear what you think. Would you trust him? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you've made it this far, you're clearly invested. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The deed sat on the counter, worn at the edges from how many times Megan had unfolded and refolded it. She sat alone in the bakery, her bakery now, legally and permanently, staring at her mother's photograph on the wall. The morning light streamed through the freshly painted windows, casting warm shadows across the floor. The bell above the door chimed. Marianne walked in, concern etched on her face. Okay, I'm here. What's going on? Megan didn't answer immediately. She slid the deed across the counter. Marianne picked it up, scanned it, and her eyes went wide. Is this what I think it is? He bought the building, put it in my name, no conditions. Wait. Marianne set the paper down. The billionaire who got you fired? The one who offered you $15,000 to sleep with him? That guy just handed you an entire building. Yes. And you believe there's no catch? Megan exhaled. I don't know what to believe anymore. Marianne studied her for a long moment. Then quietly, you have feelings for him. I don't. Megan. Silence stretched between them. When Megan finally spoke, her voice cracked. I shouldn't. After everything he did, I should hate him. But you don't. Megan looked at her mother's photograph. Grace Allen smiling in front of the oven, flour dusted across her apron. There's something broken in him, Marianne. And I know what broken looks like because I've been there. I've spent 2 years running from my mother's death. Afraid to feel anything because feeling means hurting. And you see that in him? I see someone who built walls so high he forgot there was a person behind them. She paused. And for some reason, he's trying to tear them down. For me. Marianne took her hand. So, what are you going to do? Megan looked at the deed, then at her mother's face. I think I need to find out. She pulled out her phone and sent Anthony a text, asked if he could meet her that evening. There was something she needed to tell him. His reply came within minutes. The cafe on South Maryland, 7 o'clock. Megan stared at the screen, her stomach tight. She knew what she had to do. She just hoped she had the courage to do it. The cafe was quiet when Megan arrived. Soft jazz played through the speakers. The smell of fresh coffee hung in the air. Anthony was already there, seated at the same table where they'd had their first date. He stood when he saw her, offering a warm smile that made what she was about to do even harder. They ordered drinks, made small talk. But he knew something was wrong the moment she sat down. He didn't push, just waited, his coffee growing cold in front of him. I need to be honest with you, Megan said finally. You've been nothing but kind to me, patient, understanding, and you deserve someone who can give you the same. He nodded slowly. But that's not you? Not right now. She met his eyes. There's too much unresolved in my life, and it wouldn't be fair to drag you into it. A long pause. Anthony looked down at his hands, then back at her. It's him, isn't it? The guy from the restaurant. She didn't deny it. I don't know what it is, she admitted, but I owe it to myself to figure it out. Anthony stood. He wasn't angry, wasn't bitter, just resigned. You're a good person, Megan. I hope he knows what he has. He kissed her cheek softly, then walked out of the cafe without looking back. Megan sat alone, the weight of her decision pressing down on her chest. Anthony deserved someone who was fully present, and right now, half of her heart was somewhere else. She finished her coffee slowly, watching the city lights flicker to life outside the window. Then she made a decision. She pulled up her phone and searched for Michael Hanson. His company website listed an office address in a high-rise downtown. But that wasn't what she needed. She thought about calling Mary Ann, asking for advice, but she already knew what her friend would say. Go find out. Megan grabbed her jacket and walked out into the night. The elevator doors opened into a world Megan had never seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows. The entire Las Vegas skyline glittering below like scattered diamonds. Furniture that probably cost more than her apartment's annual rent. Miguel had answered the door downstairs, surprised but polite. He'd escorted her up without question. Now Michael stood in the center of his living room, equally stunned. Megan. He said her name like he wasn't sure she was real. What are you doing here? She held out the deed. I came to return this. You didn't take it. It's yours. I know what you said, but I need to understand why. Silence. He gestured toward the leather sofa near the windows. They sat, the city pulsing quietly beneath them. 5 years ago, I lost everything that mattered, he said quietly. Not money, not business. I lost my ability to trust, to feel, to let anyone close. She listened. I convinced myself I didn't need anyone. Built walls so thick I forgot what it felt like to be human. He stared at the floor. Then you handed back my money like it meant nothing. Looked at me like I was nothing. And instead of rage, I felt something. I don't know what. Fear, hope, desperation. Why the bakery? He looked at her. Because I saw what it meant to you. The way you talked about your mother. The way you protected her memory. His voice cracked. I've never loved anything that way. Never had anything worth protecting. And I realized I wanted to. I wanted to be someone capable of that. Tears glistened in his eyes. The armor was gone. The control was gone. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect love. I just needed you to know. You changed something in me. Megan sat in silence, processing everything. Then she reached out and took his hand. I'm not saying I trust you. I'm not saying I forgive you. She squeezed gently. But I'm willing to try. His breath caught. He looked at her like she'd offered him something sacred. That's more than I ever expected. They talked for hours. About nothing. About everything. About the small, ordinary details of their lives that neither of them had shared with anyone in years. He told her about the deal he closed after the betrayal, a small investment that had netted him $12,000. How he'd celebrated alone in his apartment with a cheap bottle of wine because he had no one to call. She told him about learning to bake at her mother's side. How Grace would let her lick the frosting bowl when no one was watching. How the smell of cinnamon still made her cry sometimes. The hours slipped past midnight. The city lights shifted from bright to dim as Las Vegas slowly exhaled into the late hours. At some point, the conversation faded. Not awkwardly, just naturally. Like two people who had finally run out of walls to hide behind. Megan stood to leave. It was late. She should go. Stay. The word was quiet, almost a question. She turned. Michael was still on the sofa, watching her with an expression she hadn't seen before. Vulnerable, uncertain. I'm not asking for anything, he added quickly. I'm not ready for you to leave yet. She should have said no. Should have walked out the door and gone home to think, to process, to protect herself. Instead, she sat back down. He reached out slowly, gave her time to pull away. His fingers brushed her cheek, then tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've never met anyone like you," he whispered. "You don't know me." "I want to." The space between them shrank. She wasn't sure who moved first. Maybe both of them. Maybe neither. The kiss was soft, careful. Two people testing whether this fragile thing between them could hold any weight. It could. His hands found her waist, hers found his chest. The kiss deepened, and something shifted. Not just between them, but inside them. Years of loneliness, years of grief, years of convincing themselves they were better off alone. All of it crumbling. He pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against hers. "Are you sure?" She answered by pulling him closer. Later, much later, they lay tangled together in his bed, the sheets twisted around them, the city glowing soft and distant through the windows. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Michael broke the silence. His voice was rough, hesitant. "I don't know how to do this." She shifted to look at him. "Do what?" "Any of it." He stared at the ceiling. "I've spent 5 years pushing people away. I don't know how to let someone in. I don't know how to be good for someone." Megan propped herself up on one elbow, studied his face, the hard jaw, the tired eyes, the faint lines around his mouth that she hadn't noticed before. "You think I have this figured out?" She almost laughed. "I've spent 2 years hiding from my own grief. I barely know how to take care of myself, let alone someone else." "Then what are we doing?" "I don't know." She laid her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe we figure it out as we go." Silence settled over them again. Comfortable now, safe. Then she felt it, a tremor in his chest, a shaky breath. She looked up. Tears were sliding silently down his face. He didn't wipe them away, didn't try to hide them, just let them fall like he'd been holding them back for years and finally didn't have the strength anymore. She didn't ask what was wrong, didn't demand an explanation. She just held him. And for the first time in 5 years, Michael Hanson let himself be held. 3 months later, the smell of fresh bread drifted through the open doors and onto Water Street. A hand-painted banner hung above the entrance. Grand reopening, Sweet Grace Bakery, honoring the legacy of Grace Allen. Megan stood just inside the doorway, watching the crowd filter in. Neighbors she hadn't seen in years, old regulars who remembered her mother's cinnamon rolls, new faces drawn by the smell and the warmth. The bakery was transformed. Fresh yellow walls, gleaming display cases filled with pastries, new ovens humming in the back. Her mother's photograph hung in a place of honor near the register. Grace Allen, smiling, flour-dusted, forever preserved. Mary Ann appeared at her side, squeezing her arm. "Your mom would be so proud." Megan's throat tightened. "I hope so." The morning rush kept her busy, handing out samples, greeting customers, answering questions about the menu. It felt surreal. This place that had sat dark and empty for 2 years, now alive with laughter and conversation and the clatter of coffee cups. When things finally slowed, she looked toward the back of the room. Michael stood near the window, a cup of coffee in his hand, watching quietly. He wasn't greeting guests or shaking hands, wasn't drawing attention to himself, just present. She walked over to him. "You didn't have to hide back here." He shrugged. "It's your day, your mother's legacy. I'm just happy to watch. You're part of it now." She took his hand. "Whether you like it or not?" He looked at her, really looked, and smiled. Not the polished smile he wore in boardrooms, something softer, something real. "I think I can live with that." They stood together by the window, watching the bakery her mother had built come back to life. The weeks that followed moved quickly. Michael kept his word. No control, no demands, just quiet, steady presence. He showed up at the bakery most mornings before work, helped unload deliveries when the regular driver called in sick, learned to frost cupcakes badly just so he could spend time with her in the kitchen. One evening, over dinner at his penthouse, he made a suggestion. What if we expanded? Megan looked up from her pasta. Expanded. The bakery. Your mother built something special. What if we brought it to more people? A second location, maybe a third. Her name on every storefront. She set down her fork. Michael, I'm not trying to take over, he said quickly. This would be yours. Your decisions. Your vision. I just want to help make it possible. She studied him for a long moment. A year ago, she would have assumed there was a catch, an angle, some hidden agenda. But she'd watched him change, watched him learn to give without expecting anything in return. On my terms, she said finally. He smiled, always. 2 weeks later, Megan walked out of her apartment to find a brand new Rolls-Royce parked at the curb. Midnight blue, chrome accents catching the morning sun. A small envelope tucked under the windshield wiper. She opened it. Inside was a key and a single card in Michael's handwriting. You deserve to ride like the queen you are. She laughed out loud. Then she cried a little. Then she climbed inside and drove to the bakery with the windows down, feeling like someone she barely recognized anymore. A month after that, Michael took her to Summerlin. They drove through winding streets lined with palm trees until he pulled up to a gated estate. Spanish tile roof, lush garden, a front porch made for watching sunsets. What are we doing here? Megan asked. He handed her an envelope. Inside was another deed, her name on the dotted line. I don't need a mansion, Michael. I know. He turned to face her. But you deserve one. And I want to build a life here. With you, if you'll let me. She looked at the house, at the man beside her, at the life she never imagined she'd have. Okay, she whispered. Let's build it. And they did. Over the next several months, Michael invested in expanding the bakery, not as a takeover, but as a partnership. True to his word, every decision went through Megan. Every storefront bore her mother's name. Every location was built on the foundation Grace Allen had laid decades ago. The second bakery opened on Spring Mountain Road, then a third near the Arts District. Lines wrapped around the block on opening days. Food critics wrote glowing reviews. Grace Allen's cinnamon rolls became a Las Vegas institution. Through it all, Michael stayed in the background. He showed up early to help with deliveries, learned the difference between buttercream and fondant, sat in the corner during staff meetings, offering input only when asked. He wasn't the billionaire who controlled everything anymore. He was just a man trying to deserve the woman he loved. A year passed. The original bakery on Water Street had become the flagship of 3 locations across Las Vegas. Each one bore the same name, Sweet Grace Bakery, honoring the legacy of Grace Allen. Each one served the same cinnamon rolls her mother had perfected decades ago. Each one carried a piece of Megan's heart. It was late on a Thursday evening when Megan finished wiping down the counters at the original location. The staff had gone home. The lights were dimmed. She was alone, or so she thought. The bell above the door chimed. Michael walked in, looking unusually nervous. His tie was slightly crooked. His hands were in his pockets. He kept glancing toward the back of the shop. "What are you doing here?" she asked, smiling. "I thought you had a dinner meeting." I lied. He took her hand and led her toward the back kitchen. She followed, confused, until she saw what was waiting. A small table set for two, candles flickering, her mother's favorite flowers, white lilies arranged in a vase. And beside them, a framed photograph of Grace Allen. Megan's hand flew to her mouth. Michael, what is this? He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. A year ago, you told me to earn it. I don't know if I have. I don't know if I ever can. His voice wavered. But I do know that you've made me into someone I never thought I could be. Someone who feels, someone who hopes, someone who loves. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Megan's breath caught. He lowered himself to one knee. Megan Allen, I don't have the words to tell you what you mean to me, but I have the rest of my life to try. He opened the box, revealing a diamond ring that caught the candlelight. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face. She looked at her mother's photograph, at the kitchen where she'd learned to bake, at the man kneeling before her, the same man who'd once tried to buy her for $15,000. He'd changed. They both had. Yes, she whispered. He slid the ring onto her finger, stood, and pulled her into his arms. They held each other in the bakery her mother had built, surrounded by flour and memories and the legacy they'd protected together. Megan Allen had walked into the Hazen Hotel as a waitress with a broken heart and a dream she was too afraid to chase. She'd walked out with nothing but her dignity. But dignity, it turned out, was worth more than $15,000. More than a penthouse or a Rolls-Royce or a mansion in Summerlin. It was worth more than a man's pride, because it made him earn her. And in earning her, he found himself. Some stories are about money. Some are about power. But the best ones, the ones that stay with you, are about two broken people who found a way to heal each other. And that's exactly what happened when she refused the billionaire.